So Joe Biden is a very mixed character, in my opinion. He sat down for an interview with CNN's Chris Cuomo, and you're about to see classic Biden, which is gigantic downsides, but also the occasional upsides. Just so everybody knows, he's likely going to run in 2020, and we're going to see, he's going to give us here some clues, some hints as to what his strategy would be going into a 2020 election. So first, let's see the mumbo-jumbo angle and the part where it looks like he doesn't know what he's doing.
Are we heading down a very bad road, or do you think this all ends well?
Look, when when the president first got elected, I got heavily criticized for saying I hope he succeeds because America succeeds and the president succeeds. And I found myself first bemused, thinking that maybe these were just over-the-top gaffes that were going on. But now I've gone from that to I'm genuinely concerned. There's two things that have popped up, Chris. One is that this naked nationalism, that it's now us against them. As Richard Haas says, there's three ways countries lose their ability to influence the world and lose their power. And one of them, which is advocating that power. We're advocating our responsibility around the world and putting everything in terms of us versus them. The second thing that combines with that is this phony populism. This notion that the way in which the only reason you have a problem is because of the other. It's because of that immigrant or that minority or because of someone else doing something to you. And so this president spent his entire time since he's gotten in office trying to divide the country instead of unite the country. And as I said, I am more optimistic about the chances for America in the 21st century than I have been in my whole career. We have the most advanced universities in the world where all the research comes out of. We have the most productive people in the world. We have the most agile venture capitalists. We're in a situation where we're energy independent in North America. I mean, what are we doing? We're not talking about any of the things that really matter. And all he seems to be trying to do is undo everything President Obama has done. But he's not able to do that, by the way.
Why not?
Well, because if you see what happens, he's tried to he's damaged health care, but it's not gone. He has gone after the Paris Accord, but you see mayors and governors and local leaders getting together and making sure that it doesn't have the effect that he intended it to be. You find us in a situation where there are millions of people still have, as I said, health care and preventive care. You find ourselves in a position where the education system is actually getting better and better.
So that was a poor job, and I'm going to break it down for you and explain why. It's a poor job because the message it's all over the place. It's just garbled up, if garbled is a word. I may have just made it up. But if I did make it up, man, that's a great word. Garbled. Bargled. Barbled, whatever. You got the point. It's just mumbo jumbo. He's all over the place. So he goes. First, he starts attacking Trump. He's like, man, nationalism's bad. Then he goes to, the other problem is the U.S. is abdicating power around the world. What? So for those of you who don't know, Trump's bombing 8 different countries. Number one, that's not a good thing. Number two, that is certainly not abdicating power around the world. People like Biden and establishment types were upset with Trump when he was on the campaign trail, not because they thought this guy's a lunatic who's going to start blowing up everything in sight and starting unnecessary wars, but because they thought he might not do that, because half the time he did non-interventionist rhetoric on the campaign trail and said, let's get out of Afghanistan and let's rebuild here at home. Now, he didn't end up acting on that stuff, but I wish he did act on that stuff. Joe Biden's upset because, oh no, America seems to be abdicating power. How, Joe? How? We're bombing 8 different countries. How? We still have 900 military bases around the world. How? So, then he moves on to this phony populism. There's phony populism going on here. Stop, the Democrats need to stop attacking the idea of populism. And there's also doesn't seem to be a clear definition that everybody's getting on board with for populism. So he seemed to indicate that populism is bigotry. No, populism is doing the thing, like appealing to what average people want, doing that which is popular among average people. So stop smearing that word. Understand that the populist angle of Trump's campaign was, oh, I'm not going to outsource your jobs. I'm against NAFTA. I'm against TPP. So that was the populist angle of Trump's campaign. Not the, man, I hate immigrants. So when he starts attacking populism, but I think most people intuitively understand that populism means, doing what the average Joe wants, then that's not going to land. That's not a message that's going to land. So when he goes after Trump for nationalism, abdicating power, which is a terrible idea to go after him for. If you want to go after him, you should go after him for not abdicating power. In other words, not withdrawing U.S. troops from around the world. That would be a more powerful message because people want to stop wasting money in all these dumb wars. He goes after him for populism and he goes after him for bigotry. Then you get to, and this is why the message is so confused. He goes, I'm optimistic about America. Wait, what? You just went through a million reasons why you're like, oh, things are so bad. And then he pivots to, I'm optimistic. What? What? You can't say I'm going to attack this guy who's president now because he's doing so many fucked up things and then also say, but I'm optimistic. Which is it? Either you're like, holy shit, things are really bad. Look at this guy in here. Or you're like, oh, I'm optimistic about the country. He tries to have it both ways. And then he references venture capitalists. Come on, Joe. Come on, Joe. Really? As if, a regular person is sitting on their couch in the state of Washington going, yeah, we do have some great venture capitalists, don't we? No, they're like, fuck you, venture capitalists. It's because that's the circles he runs in. Middle-class Joe is now wealthy-ass Joe. That was not catchy enough. But you get the point. And then he goes on to say, we got the best schools. Hey, maybe you should be focusing on the student loan debt crisis, for example, or the fact that, people are still paying off student loan debt and they're in their 50s and 60s. That seems to be a big problem to me. But no, you're bragging about how great our schools are. And then finally, he does the bragging about Obama's half measures, Obama's incrementalism. The Democrats are not going to win elections on half measures. You're not going to win elections on half measures. You're going to win elections on saying, here's what I'm in favor of. And you guys already support these things. Medicare for all, free college, living wage, New Deal, legalizing marijuana. It's not an inspiring message to go out there and say, well, Obama did some good things that were incrementalist and Trump is trying to take them away, but he's not totally succeeding in taking them away. What the fuck is that? What is that? So at the same time that he's lambasting Trump and going, things are terrible, his other message is, America's already great. Just like Hillary Clinton did, and we know how that message worked out. People rolled their fucking eyes. You want to know why people rolled their eyes? Because they're hurting. They're hurting, Joe. People are struggling. Half of workers in America make $30,000 a year or less. Pick one. You either go, holy shit, things are fucked up and we have to fix them, or you go, America's already great. Now, what I would tell you is, drop the America's already great shtick because it's nonsense. That's the old school political playbook. Ronald Reagan won on his sunshine and cheeriness. It's not the 1980s anymore, Joe. It's not the 1980s anymore. You have to run on a message of, shit is fucked up and we got to fix it. You want to know why you have to run on that message? Because shit is fucked up and we have to fix it. So, but this is the downside of Joe Biden. If he runs in 2020 and he runs a campaign like this, believe it or not, he could lose. And I know, I'll be like, oh, please, Kyle. But everybody said every step of the way, Trump would never become president, and he's president. So I would hope people have learned humility by this point. First they said, he's never going to win a debate. Then he won a debate. Then they said, okay, he's never going to win the second debate. He won the second debate. Then they said there's no way he's going to win a caucus. He won a caucus. Then they said there's no way he's going to win a primary. He won a primary. Then they said there's no way he's going to get the nomination. He got the nomination. Then they said there's no way he's going to be president. He became president. Now people are saying there's no way he's going to get reelected. Have some fucking humility and understand it is possible to lose to this guy still, despite all of his ridiculous antics and nonsense and even his shitty policies. If the Democrats have a message that can't even be understood like this one, things are terrible, but also I'm optimistic about America. What the fuck is it? Which is it? If they do that, they're in trouble. That's shitty Biden. Now, let's see what Biden can be at his best. Watch.
When you go to speak to the Democrats now, this is going to be a big deal. They have to figure out some very fundamental things. Being anti-Trump probably won't be enough. What is the challenge for your party?
The challenge is for us to step up and offer concrete answers, which we're doing. For example, when we talk about the plight of the working class. One of the plights is the cost of education, the cost of daycare, the cost of being able to care for your kid. And there's no reason in the world why we can't step up and have continuing education that's free, that we can't be in a situation where, look, today, one of the reasons why we ended up the most powerful nation in the world is because of our education system. At the turn of the 20th century, in New York and other places, they said there's going to be 12 years of non-means tested free education. If we were doing that today, Chris, do you think we'd do it for 12 years?
No.
12 years is not enough. It's not even close. Everybody knows it. So
People
what the
don't
hell
want
are we
to spend
doing?
the money on other people's kids, though.
Well, no. Well, I don't think that. I think they think we don't have the money to spend. If you eliminated one single loophole called stepped-up basis, there's $1.34 trillion of loopholes out there for the wealthy and for others. If you just eliminated one that cost $17 billion, I could put every single qualified kid in America who qualifies into community college for free, cutting the cost of four-year college in half. It costs $6 billion a year, and I can reduce the deficit by $11 billion because we're giving away $17 billion a year in a thing called step.
So an idea like that is a centrist idea. You've said before the Democrats have to think about how to get to the center and speak to the people that voted for President Trump. Your party is not moving to the center, Mr. Vice President. It's moving to the left.
Well, Chris, you know me well, and I don't want to correct you. My point is, I don't think you have to choose between your heart and your soul. If you go back and look at my record of 36 years in the Senate, I was rated one of the most liberal senators in the United States Senate that 36-year period. I'm the guy that spoke out on same-sex marriage and a whole range of other things. I take a backseat to no one of being progressive. I've found no distinction between being able to be progressive and worrying about working-class people.
Thank you. There you go. And by the way, to his credit, very few other Democrats would know to respond like that. Most people would immediately give in to Chris Cuomo's bullshit framing, where Chris Cuomo's like, hey, in order to beat Trump, you guys got to move to the center. That's what you got to do. Most Democrats would be like, oh, yeah, totally, you're right. We need to move to the center. Let's go to the center now. That's what most Democrats would do. Joe Biden was like, well, here's the deal. If you're progressive, you're fighting for workers. I was one of the most liberal senators, and that's actually what makes me win elections. Yes, that's the answer. Now, listen, overall, let's keep it real about Joe Biden. He's an establishment Democrat. He's at the very least a half establishment Democrat. I think he's maybe a little more to the left than Obama, but he's probably not even as far left as Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth Warren has quite a bit of establishment in her. So I'm not saying he's some sort of populist left hero. He's not. But I'm just saying that his rhetoric there is winning rhetoric. That rhetoric right there is winning rhetoric. So he says, what do you do to win? And Joe Biden basically says, free college. There's an issue right there. Why wouldn't we do free college? And all you have to do is eliminate one tax loophole for the ultra-rich, and then you could pay for free college. Thank you, Joe. That's true. That's a winning message. Us Democrats are for free college. The Republicans are not for free college. They're for protecting tax loopholes for the ultra-rich. So whose side are you on, America? You want to be with the people who are fighting for the mega-rich to continue to hide their money in the Cayman Islands and fucking Barbados? Or you want to be with us who are saying, no, we're going to close that loophole and give your kid college for free? That's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. And again, Chris Cuomo there, totally spewing the bullshit establishment wisdom of, well, obviously, since Donald Trump is a Republican, and so in order for the Democrats to win, they need to move more towards the Republicans and be more centrist. Do you like my hardcore logic? No, I don't, idiot, because that's exactly what Hillary Clinton did. Hillary Clinton's whole message was, oh, look at me. I'm so moderate. I'm so centrist. I'm so ready to negotiate and compromise. And, you know, hey, Trump is the only really bad Republican. I love all the other Republicans. Those are good people, but Trump is an anomaly. And man, is he crazy, and is he outside the realm of what's acceptable? And people looked at that and said, she's the establishment candidate. Fuck that. I'm going to go with the anti-establishment candidate, Trump. They rolled the dice on a crazy reality host because Hillary was that unpalatable because she was so establishment, and she made arguments like Chris Cuomo is saying the Democrats should make now. Arguments like, oh, we're so centrist. Look at us. We agree with the Republicans. Chris, I got news for you, buddy. The American people hate the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. They hate both parties. So why do you want the Democrats to run a candidate who's like, I agree with both parties? That's literally the last thing that any candidate should do. A candidate has a much better shot if they come along and say, hey, I hate the Democrats and the Republicans. I think you're both terrible. I think you're both not representing the American people. Congress has an approval rating of 16%. And you want the candidate that's going to come along and say, I agree with both of these very unpopular parties. What an idiot. You're such an idiot. But this is all they talk about in Washington, D.C. This is all they say in their sycophantic circle jerk of elitists where they're like, oh, this is the argument that'll win elections. But you've tried that for decades and you keep losing. That's the exact argument that the Democrats used throughout the Obama years. And what happened? The Democrats lost 1,000 seats. Who's the most popular politician in America right now? Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is the guy who says, I don't like either party. The Republicans are terrible, and I'm trying to beg the Democrats to move in the right direction, but they're not listening to me. So the guy who regularly shits on both parties and money and politics and talks about income inequality and says, hey, let's do free college and Medicare for all and a living wage, that's the guy who everybody's like, I like that guy. So the second part here of what Biden said is good. That's good. That's how you win elections. You talk about concrete solutions to help people. Hey, I'm for free college. That's what you do. I'm for free college. I'm for free healthcare. I'm for a living wage. I'm for legalizing marijuana. I'm for a giant jobs program that rebuilds our infrastructure. This is how you win elections. So Biden, when push comes to shove, you put Biden in a corner and he'll actually start making some of the right arguments. But the problem is his message isn't sharp enough. And you saw that in the first part of what I showed you. Because when you give him, it's almost like when you give him too much of an open-ended way to answer a question, that's when he's all over the place. Trump, the nationalism is bad and abdicating power and phony populism and bigotry, but America's great and that's why things are terrible, but they're great and I'm optimistic and we have good venture capitalists. Oh, Joe, what the fuck? What are you saying? So listen, I hope it doesn't come down to Biden versus Trump. I really do. I hope we have a populist left candidate who's really against the establishment, not somebody who's mostly with the establishment, but occasionally bucks the establishment like Joe Biden. But I did want to give you a breakdown of, if he runs, which seems likely at this point, what to expect from him. From Joe Biden, if he were to run, you can expect basically half the time for him to make terrible arguments and come across not well, but the other half the time you can expect him to actually stumble upon some of the correct arguments. So, look, I think if it was in 2016 and it was Biden versus Trump instead of Hillary versus Trump, I think Biden would have won. But I don't even want to have a question about it. I know Bernie would have won. I know it. With Biden, it's like, no, he'd probably win, but there's a chance Trump wins. So, I don't know. Let's not roll the dice anymore. Let's go with the safe option, the person who we know is going to win. And the safe option is not the centrist option, Chris Cuomo. The safe option is the left option.